losing time, I'm fading fast. I just wanna make it last. Try to let go of the past. I close my eyes, embrace the blast. Sleepless nights and headaches stack. Restlessness to hell and back. What's my purpose? What do I grab? A slippery surface, a heart attack. And sometimes you just gotta believe there's something that'll give you relief. There's something that'll have what you need, what you need. We're broken, it's tragic, we're not all elastic, but maybe there's magic. Believe you could have it, and I know of sadness, the anxious and panic, the infinite vastness of all that is blackness. So tell me, oh, will you believe? So tell me, oh, will you believe? So tell me, oh, will you believe? So tell me, oh, will you believe?
What's up, cool people? Welcome to today's live stream. My name is Matt, aka That Random Christian Gamer. Today we've got our Bible study and side questing stream for the week. We'll be looking at 2 Chronicles chapters 15 and 16 as we continue our read cover to cover, in a sense, through the Bible. And after that, we'll just have kind of some chill time, open for discussion about really anything, especially anything related to the Bible study. Meanwhile, I'll just be taking it easy, playing some Power Wash Simulator, nothing I have to focus too hard on. And we have some exercise on tap for some point in the stream, probably the first ad break. Or right around the time of the first, not the first Twitch ad break, but about an hour in when that Twitch ad break hits. Anywho. Okay. I don't really have too much else to say at the moment. There are things I could talk about, but I figure I might as well just save that for the open discussion part of the stream. Okay. You know what? Since I got a couple minutes, I'll go get my dice and do the roll for the exercise stuff. Okay, then. Got my stormtrooper shaped dice tower. Alrighty. Exercise stuff. Let's see what we get. First is a 5. I guess y'all can't really see what I roll very well. So, 5 and a 1. So, the first roll is for the type of exercise, in case somebody doesn't know. And the second is usually sort of like a multiplier slash modifier kind of thing. I should probably re-roll that, because 1 doesn't really do anything. Alright, so we're going to re-roll that one. And we got another 5. Okay. So, change that 1 to a 5 there, Seth. Okie doke. Also, Sunshine Games, hello. Hope you're doing well. Yeah, I guess that's a halfway. You know what? I'll move that over here. That way it is blocking absolutely 0% of my monitors. Yeah, I'm trying to pin it, but it makes it difficult when, you know, chat is moving. Okay. Alright, so with that out of the way, I think we'll go ahead, run the first little Twitch ad break before it runs itself, and then we'll hop into our Bible study. Twitch folks, I will see y'all in a little bit. There we go. I'm like, once it gets rolling. Okay. Then we will shift over to this right here. Yeah, planking. That's probably gonna make me want to get my little... I guess technically it's a yoga mat, but... I don't really use it for yoga per se. The exercise mat. Jeez, really? Because you got back from that ad break really quickly, it seems. Twitch is telling me it's still in progress. So I don't know what's up there. Let me take a quick look at the chapters we got. See about how shouldn't be all that long, really. Might be a little extra open discussion time afterwards, I guess. Okay. Now, according to Twitch, ad break is done. Therefore, Bible study shall begin. All right. We're looking at 2 Chronicles chapter 15. Okay, so within our sort of recap of the history of Israel, we're at King Asa. I don't know if that's actually the pronunciation, but that's what I'm going with. King Asa of Judah. And so what I think after Solomon, it was Rehoboam, and then this is like 2 generations later. Last chapter, he got into there was a really big attack by Cush/Ethiopia. Cush is what it was known by then. Ethiopia is just like the modern day area. And King Asa here prayed to God, trusted God to save them, and not only did they, remain alive, but it was a resounding victory. They even kind of looted some plunder from the Cushites. So after that resounding success, and prior to that, he had also kind of made an effort to tear down a bunch of idols to other gods and things like that. But after all that happened, and then the big victory and whatnot, then we get to this chapter here. So, 2 Chronicles, chapter 15. Then the Spirit of God came upon Azariah, son of Oded, and he went to meet King Asa as he was returning from the battle. "Listen to me, Asa," he shouted. "Listen, all you people of Judah and Benjamin. The Lord will stay with you as long as you stay with him. Whenever you seek him, you will find him. But if you abandon him, he will abandon you. For a long time, Israel was without the true God, without a priest to teach them, and without the law to instruct them. But whenever they were in trouble and turned to the Lord, the God of Israel, and sought him out, they found him. During those dark times, it was not safe to travel. Problems troubled the people of every land. Nation fought against nation, and city against city, for God was troubling them with every kind of problem. But as for you, be strong and courageous, for your work will be rewarded. interesting, ominous music my computer happens to be playing in the background. That's the kind of bad that was happening before and would be expected if they turned away from God. Anywho. So, it wasn't necessarily just that, when the battle was happening last chapter, it wasn't just that King Asa prayed to God to help, save us. And I mean, sometimes that is all that's necessary for God to respond and help and save. In fact, go to the New Testament, read some stuff in there. I forget where exactly, possibly Romans, where it says that while we were still sinners, aka not following God, desiring God, while we were sinners, Christ died for us. So, God is good even when we're not. But in any case, in the context of this Old Testament situation with the Israelites living in the Promised Land, specifically Judah in this case, and maybe Benjamin, but the kingdom of Judah, there have been multiple times where they have been told, not necessarily these people, but, generations of God's people have been told, follow God and he'll be with you. Turn away from God and he will abandon you. And of course, it's when they turn away that the trouble comes for them specifically. That's essentially the warning that Azariah is saying here, which it seems a little odd that he would say it specifically, although maybe not so much. I was going to say it seems odd to sort of preach to the choir here and say it to someone who was already tearing down idols and, helping the people seek after God. But, maybe saying it to someone who would actually pay attention and listen and do something about it is why, the Spirit comes upon Azariah and he says this to King Asa in this situation. Because Asa has already shown that he wants to follow the Lord and, will take action to help the people of his kingdom also follow the Lord their God. So, anyway, let me move on now. I feel like I've talked about that bit for a little while. On to verse 8. When Asa heard this message from Azariah the prophet, he took courage and removed all the detestable idols from the land of Judah and Benjamin, and in the towns he had captured in the hill country of Ephraim. And he repaired the altar of the Lord, which stood in front of the entry room of the Lord's temple. Then Asa called together all the people of Judah and Benjamin, along with the people of Ephraim, Manasseh, and Simeon, who had settled among them. For many from Israel had moved to Judah during Asa's reign when they saw that the Lord his God was with him. The people gathered at Jerusalem in late spring during the 15th year of Asa's reign. I'm gonna pause there again for a little bit. So, I don't know if he had some doubts about whether he was supposed to be tearing down the idols that he did or anything like that, but clearly hearing this message made him that much bolder to go ahead and keep doing that. And it says he removed all, note that word, all the detestable idols from the land of Judah and Benjamin, and basically anything that was within his kingdom, any area that was within his kingdom. So he had it noted before that he started tearing down those idols, but it didn't say that he had, gotten rid of all of them yet. Now it says he's gotten rid of all of them. There is no idol there to distract the people and tear them away from worshiping their God. So, and then I guess he has gathered them together for something. We'll see what in the following verses. But let me check the notes here real quick. As in Syriac version and Latin Vulgate, Hebrew reads from Oded the prophet, but Azariah was his son. So, in a way, I could see some of the original manuscripts wording it as if it came from Oded because it was his son who prophesied. Either that, or the Spirit actually came upon Azariah, who then told Oded, and then Oded told the king. Either way, there is somebody, one of these two, prophesied to the king. Then there's one other note down here at the end of verse 10, or actually kind of halfway through it. Hebrew says it's in the 3rd month. And this month of the ancient Hebrew lunar calendar usually occurs within the months of May and June, which is why it says late spring here. So that was around the time of year that the people gathered. So then, verse 11. On that day they sacrificed to the Lord 700 cattle and 7,000 sheep and goats from the plunder they had taken in the battle. Just from the plunder. Then they entered into a covenant to seek the Lord, the God of their ancestors, with all their heart and soul. They agreed that anyone who refused to seek the Lord, the God of Israel, would be put to death, whether young or old, man or woman. They shouted out their oath of loyalty to the Lord with trumpets blaring and ram's horns sounding. All in Judah were happy about this covenant, for they had entered into it with all their heart. They earnestly sought after God, and they found him. And the Lord gave them rest from their enemies on every side. King Asa even deposed his grandmother, Maacah, from her position as queen mother because she had made an obscene Asherah pole. He cut down her obscene pole, broke it up, and burned it in the Kidron Valley. Although the pagan shrines were not removed from Israel, Asa's heart remained completely faithful throughout his life. He brought into the temple of God the silver and gold and the various items that he and his father had dedicated. So there was no more war until the 35th year of Asa's reign. So that was what, like 20 years there? That they ended up being without war. So they got all this cattle and sheep and probably more from the plunder that they took from the battle against the Cushites. That wasn't even their own stuff that they already had. That was part of what they had gained from the battle. So then they enter into a covenant wholeheartedly. It might seem a little extreme out of context that they agreed to put any dissenters to death, essentially, to basically anyone who didn't wholeheartedly seek the Lord would be put to death. But, like, they had so many warnings time and again about turning away from the Lord and what that would do. And there were specific warnings previously throughout the history of the Israelites about how, like, you know, mixing other gods into, you know, wherever they lived, having other gods around and idols thereof would lead them astray. So they were essentially just that dedicated to following the Lord that they said, nope, we're not even gonna have any hint of any other god that could, like, make us drift away from the Lord, our God. Note here at his grandmother. See, now that says his mother. I think their relationship had actually been described in a way in some previous chapter. I forget exactly which one it is, so I don't want to, like, you know, go back and try to find it when I'm not totally sure. But, so she had made a pole that was involved in worshiping another god. So she might not have been killed necessarily for that, but the pole was destroyed, and she no longer had her, like, whatever privileges came with being mother or grandmother of the king, that those were revoked. So, yeah, now it says the pagan shrines were not removed from Israel. I guess that means the other kingdom of Israel that involved the other, like, 10 tribes or whatever. Because, remember, the kingdoms are split. The tribes are split into two different kingdoms. I mean, there was Judah and Benjamin, essentially, in the one kingdom, and then all the rest of the tribes were in the other. And the other one went, essentially, or is often referred to as the Kingdom of Israel. Whereas this one is the Kingdom of Judah. So, even though other people who were descended from God's chosen people, and really should have been part of God's chosen people, even though they still had pagan shrines and idols and things like that right near him in his kingdom, he did not turn away. He being King Asa. So yeah, he continues to stay dedicated to the Lord, he and the people of Judah, and there's no war for them for 20 years, because it's said they gathered in Jerusalem during the 15th year, and that was when they made the covenant. So 35 minus 15 is 20. 20 years, no war for Judah. Okay. And there you have 2 Chronicles chapter 15. All right. Get a quick sip of water here. Alrighty. And we'll move on to the next chapter. All right. So now we're looking at 2 Chronicles 16. Past couple of chapters have focused on King Asa of Judah. He led... The past chapter described it as religious reforms, but essentially he led an effort to remove all the idols from the kingdom of Judah and seemed to successfully do so. The people, after hearing that, God would be with them as long as they worshipped God and, followed him, sought him. So God will be with them as long as they followed him. After hearing that, the people kind of made their own covenant, or maybe sort of renewed the prior covenant. Either way, there was a covenant ceremony, and they dedicated themselves to following the Lord their God once again. And as a result of that, there was peace in the kingdom of Judah for about 20 years. And now that brings us to chapter 16 here. So here we go. In the 36th year of Asa's reign, King Baasha of Israel invaded Judah and fortified Ramah in order to prevent anyone from entering or leaving King Asa's territory in Judah. Asa responded by removing the silver and gold from the treasuries of the temple of the Lord and the royal palace. He sent it to King Ben-Hadad of Aram, who was ruling in Damascus, along with this message: "Let there be a treaty between you and me, like the one between your father and my father. See, I am sending you silver and gold. Break your treaty with King Baasha of Israel, so that he will leave me alone." So war came to Judah, not because they did anything wrong in particular, so it seems, but because their neighbors, even brothers you might say, in Israel decided to attack. Given that the kingdom of Israel was composed of far more tribes, they generally had the larger fighting force. In fact, there was a battle just, I want to say, about 3 chapters ago, where Asa's father was up against Jeroboam and the army of Israel, and that essentially Israel had double the number of troops that Judah had. Judah still won that battle because they were dedicated to the Lord and cried out to him for help, and God helped because of that. But still, Israel would likely have a much larger army than Judah. So, when Israel attacks and, starts invading, fortifies a particular, I don't know if that's a fortress of some kind, but they fortified Ramah. And, it seems like Israel might have the upper hand here. So then King Asa tries to make a deal with the king of Aram, who apparently had a treaty of some sort going on with Israel. And Asa's basically saying, okay, look, I'm going to give you a bunch of stuff if you break your treaty with Israel. I just want him to leave me alone. Please, can you come help get him away? Note there at treaty in verse 3. That comes from the Greek version. Hebrew reads, there is a treaty. So, that would almost be more like sort of appealing to the fact that they have a treaty already and say, look, we got this partnership going on. And I'm asking for your help as a partner in this, as opposed to, hey, let's become partners. So then, Israel will get off my back. Either way, it's to get Israel off of his back. So then, verse 4. Ben-Hadad agreed to King Asa's request and sent the commanders of his army to attack the towns of Israel. They conquered the towns of Ijon, Dan, Abel Beth-Maachah, and the store cities in Naphtali. As soon as Baasha of Israel heard what was happening, he abandoned his project of fortifying Ramah and stopped all work on it. Then King Asa called out all the men of Judah to... Yeah, okay. I wanted to make sure I was reading that right. Then King Asa called out all the men of Judah to carry away the building stones and timbers that Baasha had been using to fortify Ramah. Asa used these materials to fortify the towns of Geba and Mizpah. Okay. So, the request has been granted by the king of Aram. So he goes and attacks Israel, obviously weakening them. It says they conquered a few of the towns from Israel. So that obviously diverts King Baasha's attention away from Judah and towards, the Aramean army. I get the feeling that, the Arameans were more actively attacking Israel, whereas Judah had just kind of been on the defensive from Israel's attack. And so King Asa uses this opportunity to take the materials that were being used to fortify Ramah, which must have been like some key checkpoint along the typical trade route or whatever for Judah. But King Asa gets his men to take the materials from that and use it to fortify a couple of his own towns. Note there, probably referring to Abel Beth-Maachah. That's as in a parallel text from 1 Kings 15:20. Hebrew reads Abel Maim, which is another name for it. It's still referring to the same town either way in all likelihood. With 2 Chronicles being part of a recap of Israel's history, this stuff had already been mentioned back in 1 Kings, apparently. And the way that I understand this note is that 1 Kings 15 already had it called Abel Beth-Maachah, but the Hebrew for 2 Chronicles 16, the Hebrew manuscript anyway, had it as Abel Maim. But that could also have just been another way of referring to the same place. Maybe it's one of those things where it got to have sort of a different name over the course of time. But because it's referring to the same place, the translators here decide to keep it consistent with what was said in 1 Kings and just add this note here. Okay. So, after... Sorry. After Israel's attention has been diverted, we get to verse 7. At that time, Hanani the seer came to King Asa and told him, "Because you have put your trust in the king of Aram instead of in the Lord your God, you missed your chance to destroy the army of the king of Aram. Don't you remember what happened to the Ethiopians and Libyans and their vast army with all of their chariots and charioteers? At that time you relied on the Lord, and he handed them over to you. The eyes of the Lord search the whole earth in order to strengthen those whose hearts are fully committed to him. What a fool you have been. From now on you will be at war." Asa became so angry with Hanani for saying this that he threw him into prison and put him in stocks. At that time, Asa also began to oppress some of his people. See, so... It calls Hanani a seer, which I don't know if there's necessarily a significant difference between that and a prophet. But Hanani basically says, you were supposed to trust in the Lord. Why did you turn to the king of Aram instead? Now, because you're not trusting in the Lord, you're going to continue to be at war for the rest of your life. So, it's not even that King Asa had turned away from worshiping the Lord. He just let his fear get the best of him in a crucial situation and, tried to use his own means to get some support from another king instead of once again solely relying on the Lord. Fear is a very common thing that will turn some people away from seeking God in a situation. In fact, I think most of us are guilty of trying to take matters into our own hands like this because we're afraid. But King Asa obviously doesn't like hearing that from Hanani, so he throws the guy in prison. And it also says he began to oppress some of his people. I assume that's sort of an indication that he is kind of going to continue on this path of turning away from the Lord. Because what need would he have to oppress the people if they were all mutually following the Lord and, agreeing that things should be done the same way? Or even maybe just agreeing on the same reasons or motivations for what they do. Okay. Note there at Ethiopians, Hebrew says Cushites, which, again, is probably what they were called at that time. Instead of charioteers, it could be read as horsemen, but aren't... if you've got chariots... I guess charioteers are necessarily tied to the chariots. Horsemen, there might have been other horses that weren't tied to chariots that would have had riders. Either way, that was just part of Hanani being like, okay, you remember when this other army attacked? This massive 1,000,000+ man army that came to attack you when you had maybe half of that size of army? You completely relied on the Lord then. Why are you not trusting the Lord now? It's a similar situation, even. I think that's pretty much what Han and I was getting at. Anyway. Okay. Verse 11. The rest of the events of King Asa's reign, from beginning to end, are recorded in the book of the kings of Judah and Israel. In the 39th year of his reign, Asa developed a serious foot disease. Yet even with the severity of his disease, he did not seek the Lord's help, but turned only to his physicians. So he died in the 41st year of his reign. He was buried in the tomb he had carved out for himself in the city of David. He was laid on a bed perfumed with sweet spices and fragrant ointments, and the people built a huge funeral fire in his honor. Real quick. Hello, Cheesy. Hope you're doing well. Theory confirmed, I guess, that King Asa continues to turn further away from the Lord, because he doesn't even seek God's help with a disease. Okay. Pausing that little bit of Bible reading and summary and discussion. So, you're worried about the rapture and stuff. What in particular worries you about that, Cheesy? I mean, I could see it being a scary concept for some people. I feel like I'll miss it or I won't be. So the question to answer to get to alleviating this fear is, do you have faith in Christ? Do you believe Jesus is the only way to salvation, and that his death on the cross and resurrection was enough to save you from sin? Because if yes, then the rapture isn't necessarily something to fear. Any rapture that would happen, you should likely be part of. Now, there is some debate as to when the rapture happens in relation to other tribulation prophesied and whatnot. Also, do not listen to other people when they claim to know when the rapture is going to happen. I forget the reference, but it mentions specifically within the Bible that no one will really know the day or the time. So you're concerned because you know you've sinned recently. I can attest to the fact that, you know, even as a dedicated believer in Christ, I still mess up sometimes. I still am guilty of sinning, but if we truly have a heart for God, we should, you know, be able to tell that we've done wrong and confess that to God, repent of it, and, you know, continue seeking his forgiveness. We constantly need God's forgiveness and grace. Never understood the predictions because a thief won't be like, yo, I'm coming into your house on this day. Yeah, right? Yeah. Again, people who claim to know, they don't. But yeah, if your concern is more so about your recent sin, the encouragement is the same as always when it comes to us and sin. And that is to turn to Jesus, realize that what he did was sufficient to save us from sin, and ask for forgiveness. And that's not even necessarily saying that God hasn't already forgiven us. It's just when we confess our sins and repent and ask for forgiveness, that is us kind of, as it was described here within this chapter of the Bible, that was like us being, or maybe it was the previous chapter. Yeah, I guess it was more so the previous one. Anyway, that shows our commitment, our dedication to continue seeking God and relying on Him. Confessed very quickly, and I'm trying to turn back to, and look, as long as we live on this earth, we will never be perfect. But the point is to continue trying to be better, trying to not continue, your previous errors and continue sinning in those ways, and to continue turning more and more to God. Realizing that when we do mess up, what Jesus did is sufficient. And we only, all our hope is ultimately in Jesus and what he did. So, I mean, I hope that helps. Tell you what, since I've got my recording bit paused, I mean, I could look up any verses you might want for references on what I've said. Most of the time I see a Rapture video. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'd possibly even recommend staying away from Rapture-related videos, especially if they continue to make you feel anxious. Because usually, the way a lot of those videos are designed, they're designed in a way to make you feel anxious and feel guilty and try and get you to turn to Christ. Especially they want people who don't already believe to turn to Christ. But yeah, there's kind of some shady scare tactics going on in a lot of those videos. So honestly, if you don't want to feel anxious about it, I recommend staying away from that type of thing. Hashtag Satan is a loser, God is a mover. That's... Can't say I've heard that one as a hashtag at least. But it's a good one. Alright. Anything else I could do for you there, Cheesy? Hopefully, this... Hopefully I've at least given you a little bit of comfort or, reassurance that, as long as you're a believer, and your trust is in Jesus, the day-to-day things we do wrong shouldn't be a reason to fear any kind of rapture or anything like that. The Bible, it doesn't even say in any actually biblical description of a rapture, it doesn't even say that the people who are taken are perfect. It just says that they're people of God or something to that effect. But yeah, again, continue seeking Jesus, confess and repent when you realize you've messed up, and just keep trying to do better. That's pretty much the Christian life in a nutshell there. All right. So I guess with that, I'll move back into my kind of closing thoughts on this chapter of the Bible study. Spent hours on my device watching mostly entertainment videos. I do make time for the Bible and praying. I don't act like I don't have time. Is watching... You're asking if watching videos for entertainment, if that's a sin? Because generally speaking, if that is your question, I wouldn't necessarily say that in and of itself is sinful. Like, if you are just taking some time to relax, there's nothing inherently wrong with that. But at the same time, if you are especially feeling led by God, that maybe you shouldn't spend as much time on that. Maybe you should take a little bit of that time and spend it with God instead, or going out and helping people, or doing something else. Like, that's like, if you're feeling led by God to do something else, then continuing in what you're doing is a sin of a sort. But like, man, I can't remember where it would say something like that and what it says exactly, but there are certain activities that are not in and of themselves sinful, but if someone feels convicted of it, feels convicted that it's wrong, then to them it is sin. There's some verse to that effect somewhere in the New Testament, probably in and around where it's being discussed about, like, eating certain foods. But my encouragement in your case specifically would be to definitely reflect on your time and pray about it. Maybe even seek, wisdom and counsel from others. And like, if you genuinely feel prompted by God to use your time in a different way, then especially in that case, I would say you should be doing something different with your time. I got my Bible about 9 months ago on Christmas Day. Started at Matthew. Now I'm at the start of Hebrews. Is this normal? I read like 10 verses a day now. Look, there's no prescribed amount of progress to make within a certain time frame. Honestly, in this read through of the Bible that I'm doing on my channel here, I'm only doing 2 chapters a week. And at that rate, it's gonna take like over 5 years to finish the whole Bible, but better than not doing it at all. And Matthew is not a terrible place to start. Definitely better idea going New Testament first especially for a newer believer. But yeah, however much you gotta read to keep at it, keep doing it. Don't feel guilty, like you need to do more, unless you genuinely feel like God is prompting you to do so. But definitely don't abandon it entirely. Okay, real quick, gonna give my last couple of thoughts related to the chapter we've been looking at here. We can get back to your discussion. We can get into Bible trivia after I wrap this up. Sound fair? Because then it's just open discussion time. So King Asa here develops a serious foot disease, it says, in the 39th year of his reign. But he continues to not seek the Lord and turns to his physicians instead. So, about 2 years later, he dies. And the fact that it says, so he died, kind of implies that it was maybe because of the foot disease or because he just turned to his physicians instead of the Lord. But yeah, so his reign as king of Judah is done. Maybe next chapter we'll start getting a better indication of whether 2 Chronicles continues to only follow the kings of Judah. I kind of get an inkling that's what it's going to do. I think 2 Chronicles was supposed to, or 1st and 2nd Chronicles really was supposed to be more meant initially for the exiles who were conquered by Babylon, rather than the ones, who did Israel get conquered by? I am blanking on that, but anyway, it was the kingdom of Judah that was conquered by Babylon, and I think this was more specifically addressed to them. But anyway, so yeah, King Asa is indeed cooked, so to speak. And we'll see who's next when we get to the next chapter. But that does it for 2 Chronicles 16. Okay. Just had that little bit of summary I wanted to get into. And yeah, okay, looks like it's going to continue focusing on Judah. I am not surprised by that. But that'll come next week. Okay. Now, we shift over to our perhaps slightly even less focused time of the stream. Twitch is going to run some ads here in a few minutes if I don't, so I think I'm just going to do that anyway while I transition things over. But yeah, for the rest of the stream, I'm just going to take it easy. Well, I'm going to do my exercise that's pinned there. And then I'm going to take it easy with just playing some Power Wash Simulator, nothing too serious, while we continue whatever discussion we want to do. So, ads should be running here shortly. At least for Twitch folks. Alrighty. Flip this thing around. I feel like it makes more sense to have it face that way while I am facing that way primarily. Get my controller a little more accessible here. Alrighty. Gotta make sure that I change categories on Twitch here as well. Power Wash Simulator. Okay. Switch over to this view. And I'm going to ditch my background music at this point, I think. I'm not sure that's really necessary anymore. Oh yeah. Once the ad break comes back, I suppose it's exercise time. I can continue. I'm probably going to want to put my little exercise mat on the floor here for this. Yeah, that was louder than I expected. Okay, got that laid out. See, like, if you're saying it, especially if you don't know that you're saying that in a different language, like, I don't think there's really anything to be terribly guilty about there. How do, like, I don't think you meant anything bad when you did that. Okay, so, planking time. I'm gonna get a timer here going on my phone for I guess we'll say, since the 5 was rolled, we'll say it's 50 seconds. Okay. Move that even a little further to the side. Get myself in position here. And planking begins now. All right. So, by the way, since I haven't already mentioned it in this stream, I will be streaming a little bit shorter than I would like to today, simply because I've been asked to go into work tomorrow to help out with a little inventory-related stuff. Yeah, so that's a thing. I kind of like normally when my streams go for about 3 hours. This one's going to be closer to 2 because of that. Okay. Almost there. And there's my timer. I hope you've at least seen other people do some planks then to be able to comment on my form then. But you know what? I appreciate you being encouraging either way, whether or not you actually know anything about that. Okay. Now I can unpin that message. Most obscure sins, that people don't know are sins. That's kind of a tough question to answer. Especially because realistically, there are a lot of things that, like, doing a certain thing might not necessarily be sinful in every case, but because of other circumstances, including people just, being essentially told by God that they shouldn't do it, that's Like, if God tells you not to do it, even if it's not something that is inherently sinful, like, that's not... It's still sinful if God tells you not to do it. I wouldn't say every circumstance, but like a lot of things kind of similar to, I'm not saying your case is like this, but similar to what you described, where somebody is spending a significant chunk of time doing something in particular that isn't time with God, and then they realize that they should be spending that time, or at least some of that time, with God. So ultimately, the fact that they continue to do the other thing is sinful because they know they should be spending that time with God. Especially if there's not a specific other purpose to that. Anyway, as far as what's available here, so yeah, within the career, we've got the one main story job. As far as bonus jobs go, it looks like we've got one in part 2 there, one in part 4. I guess I don't have parts 5 or 6 yet. When Bible trivia? Oh, I thought you were maybe going to come up with the Bible trivia. I misunderstood. I implied the wrong thing from what you said. So yeah, Bible trivia can pretty much just be whenever at this point. So I got, I guess, really 3 of the seasonal specials here, too. I have completely lost track of how many jobs are actually available. Let me count them. 1. So that was 2, 3. 4, 5, 6. 7. Looks like 7. 7 jobs. I'm going to ask you some interesting questions about the Bible to see if you... Sure, this is just kind of open time. Feel free to fire away with your questions. Halloween. Yes, we can clean the Halloween house. That was one of the 3 I was including in here. So, 6th book of the New Testament. Romans. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Acts, Romans. All right, so Seth, I guess I'm going with the Halloween job then. Okay. Starting this job will reset any progress on other seasonal jobs. Okay. I didn't think I had any that were in progress and not complete, so that is fine. What did David use to defeat Goliath? A sling and stone. Some might say just the sling, but, you know, there had to be a stone to go with the sling. Oh, right. So, yeah, 4, 7 options there, I guess. I don't necessarily have the means to roll for this stuff. How many soaps? I mean, only 2 that actually are gonna do anything. But it shows 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 soap slots, I guess. What happened to Job that he grieved much but turned to the Lord? I mean, so Job, there's a couple of different things that happened to Job in different phases. Because I think at first he just lost, it was either just a bunch of his possessions first, or he lost his children. Either way, there was that. And he eventually lost essentially everything that he had, and had, like, some sort of illness or something like that. Okay, 351 extension. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Soap nozzle. That would be why the soap is relevant. So if we're going with one of the 2 actual soaps, then I guess it'd be the stone cleaner. Okay. Would make sense to me that I use a soap cleaner to, or use a stone cleaner to clean the stone. I'm probably using a lot of it right now, though. Okay, now asking what did God allow Satan to do, I mean, it was kind of all of it. Like, all the bad things that happened to Job were essentially because God allowed Satan to do that. But more specifically, in the midst of his, loss, Satan was also saying to God, well, he just continues to follow you because, he himself hasn't been harmed physically. So then God allowed Satan to, like, afflict him with boils or at least some sort of physical thing, physical ailment like that. What day did God create man? That would be the 6th day of creation. 2 dings minimum or 10% progress for the switch. Gotcha. Okay. Okay, that was 2 dings. 1 up there and 1 down here. I would like to switch, please. Why did God allow Satan to do that to Job? I forget the wording exactly, but I'm pretty sure it was essentially because he trusted that Job would remain faithful. Soap doesn't really matter in this situation because I'm not using a soap nozzle. Oh, we got the turbo here. Okay. Or is the 2 then just going to be how many objects I need to fully clean before we change? Oh, 6 dings or 10%. Okay. Jack-o'-lantern. It changes over. Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm not really the biggest fan of low-angle nozzles, so trying to go for completing objects. Small objects in particular. Okay, so that's 2. 1 for the gargoyle, 1 for the jack-o'-lantern. So, while we're on the idea of Bible trivia, just something I kind of like to point out as a fun little bit of Bible knowledge. So, there is a talking donkey in the Bible. Specifically, it shows up within the book of Numbers. I forget the exact chapter, but essentially, the story involves a man going out to either bless or curse the people of Israel, or bless or curse the people following Moses, I think it was more specifically, and you know, the guy was sort of hired by another king that was nearby as they were wandering the wilderness, and he was hired to curse Moses and his people, but God's like, no, you're going to bless them instead, or you're going to do what I tell you to do once you get there. But even as he was going on that journey, he comes unknowingly upon an angel of the Lord with a drawn sword at the ready while they're going through a narrow passage. The donkey sees this, but the man does not. So donkey turns to the side, and because of scraping his master's foot, dude's upset with the donkey and is like, why do you keep doing this? And then the donkey talks in order to respond to him and be like, when have I misled you before? So if I'm like, I've been trustworthy up to this point, so why are you doubting me now? Look, there's an angel here ready to kill you if I did not either stop or turn away. And then his eyes are opened and he sees the angel there. And of course, then the guy's sorry. Anyway, yeah, I would like to change my settings, my washing settings here in the game, please. So, 1, 5, and 1. Yippee. Twist? What's the twist? The top step of the pathway stair is cleaned, or when dings reach 6. The top step specifically. Do I have to clean all the ones in between, or just the top one? You know what? I'll clean the top one and then see what you have to say about it. thing. Also, I've already used up like 1.7 bottles of soap out of 3. So, let's change to something else, please. Okay, so 3, 4. 1 doesn't really matter. And so now it's 10% or 1 object. Okay. This might not be so bad. I think this is going to be a go all the way to 10% kind of situation. Going to be very easy to clean a wide area like this, considering we're using the widest nozzle possible. Seems like that fence is going to need something a little more powerful, though, to get the rust off of it. Or maybe not. Maybe it just needed the top to be cleaned. Yeah, I'm going to 10% with this. In case that wasn't already clear. Alright, so, I guess Cheesy's Bible trivia is done. Anybody else got some Bible trivia, or even just other questions they want to ask or stuff that you want to talk about? Whatever it is, just hit me up in that chat there. Meanwhile, I will say, going into this week, I did not expect that I would end up going into work on Friday for a second week in a row. I think that might actually be a first for me. I've gone in on an occasional Friday here and there before, but I don't think it was ever 2 in a row up until now. Now, I mean, this past Friday was pretty much my own choice, because I had specific things that I wanted to get done that were on my radar, needed to be done eventually, but I wasn't being, like, rushed to do them or anything like that. And I don't know if there was a rush per se to do this inventory thing, but it's more than just me involved, so I don't want to feel like I am in any way holding things up, or, you know, like, how to word it, or like I'm not putting my best foot forward with it. And hopefully, it's a simple enough thing that we'll just, work on it tomorrow and then be done with it. Because I don't think this is even like a really meticulously detailed inventory kind of thing. It's more just because there's a certain area in the, plant, I guess you'd call it, where I work. There's a certain area that we don't really keep up with, regularly tracking, I guess, all the parts in that area. So, in lieu of doing that at least once a year, so I've been told, we, just kind of do a bit of physical inventory like this. And yeah, that's... But if it's only a once a year thing, then I would hope nothing else comes up for next week that would lead to me going in next Friday once again. Okay, I'm at 10%. I suppose it is time to switch our power washer attachments. Meanwhile, I am absolutely 0% surprised about feedback and interactions I keep getting on a certain short video that I shared today. Because, I dared to talk about something that was actually kind of a hot topic. Sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. For that doesn't really matter. And then 6 items, or when the highest item is clean. I assume you mean like the item that is the absolute highest in this place. I'm not necessarily planning to clean it right now. I'm just kind of curious as to what that even is. So with that in mind, also, I feel like there's a certain lack of any, ambient sounds here. Is it always like that? Audio. Ambience volume. I guess we'll turn that up just a little bit. Maybe even get a tiny bit of music in there. So the absolute highest item I suppose would have to be that. Yeah, that definitely seems like it's up higher. Up higher than any of the rest. But that doesn't mean I'm necessarily doing that right now. What am I gonna pick up from here? Oh, geez. What ladder is there that what? I'm so confused. What ladder was within my grabbing range right there? I don't know. Anyway. Okay, so 6 items in general, or just the tallest one. Well, I was thinking maybe I would try cleaning some other stuff besides the tallest item. This is not exactly going quickly. Or it doesn't seem particularly efficient. I wonder if the gravestones would go any quicker. Or more efficient. There's a P there. I wonder what the P is for. Also, the font of that P looks very much like the Pittsburgh Pirates P in their logo or something. Yeah, okay, you know what? Let me see if I can get the highest object here then. I'm not sure what the best way would be to get to the other side of it. Really, the best way is probably going to be take this whole thing, move it around to that side. Good thing there's no fall damage or damage of any kind in this game, really. The only damage one could argue being done to anything is the damage that I deal to the dirt. Okay, and there's a ding on the highest item. There we go. My first jump attempt failed. All right, change, please. 4, 2, 1. Not that it matters. And 1. Proceeds to start cleaning something kind of large in order to make a decent amount of progress before I get the 1 ding that I'm allowed. But I'm not going to specifically avoid finishing what I'm cleaning here just because of that either. Would that possibly be a smart choice? Yes. But I also feel like that's... Oh, I can go all the way to another 10%. Well, that maybe changes my stance on things a bit. Trying to intentionally leave little bits of dirt behind on everything I'm cleaning. So that A, I don't get the one ding right now, and B, I have some easier spots to go for when I do want to get just a couple of quick dings. And I bet you at 20%, I'm gonna get another message in the game related to this job. Yep, there we go. 20%. I'm sorry, the bedroom of this character is also really dirty. Like, why? How did that's inside. How? Anyway. Not sure I've ever cleaned it. Well, just move from room to room. Yeah, okay. That's why. You just don't clean things. Okay, so 3... 6. 1 is irrelevant. 2 or skeleton location? I'm sure there was a skeleton somewhere, and I'm just not remembering. Simple riddle of my words. Oh. So, like, a gravestone kind of thing. Okay. I would think I can get a couple of fairly quick object completions out of some of these pumpkins / jack-o'-lanterns. I mean, really all jack-o'-lanterns are... Well, maybe not all. Most jack-o'-lanterns are pumpkins. But obviously not all pumpkins are jack-o'-lanterns. Pretty much any traditional jack-o'-lanterns are pumpkins. Ding. Okay, that was 2. One, 1, 3, 4, or deep clean. Sorry. 1, 1. Why are we adding riddles to this? I mean, obviously, from your perspective, adding in some riddles makes it more fun for you. And that's really the reason why. Yeah, I get the fact that deep clean is supposed to be some kind of wordplay, but I don't like. What? I guess deep would have been the well, because it theoretically goes down deep. Okay. I mean, I've already managed to clean 3 things anyway, and that's 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Those were my 4 dings. Okay. 4, 1. Oh, jeez. I don't know, the well itself could take a while. But would it take longer than cleaning 4 other items? That's the question. Three others. Oh, I think I was trying to go off of memory there, and I remembered the wrong number. I mean, I was definitely trying to go off of memory there. Alright, if I'm gonna clean the inner part of that well, I think this would aid in my efforts. Okay, maybe not as much as I was hoping for. Alright, well is cleaned. Next. Wow, I still have not moved beyond 20% complete for the job, technically. Oh man, yep, I'm tired. Alrighty. 3. 1. Now, the rest of the well might technically be 3 other objects in and of itself. Because you got the well roof as one object. Oh, maybe even more. Because there's the roof and then the posts, and then there's the spool, which I guess is, you know, what's running across the middle here. Well, I've heard 2 dings already. Thinking I might as well go for a 3rd ding that's directly connected to the well here. So I guess these kind of like little wide juts are counted as part of the post. I was like, what about this is not clean? It was the top of the post. Alright, so I do believe that was 3. Man. 4, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, yay. And, nope, wait. And 2 would be the wood cleaner. 6 dings or lowest items. Well, which, like, how many of the lowest items? We talking just like this entire, you know, wall, fence, gate area thing? Because I'm sure trying to use wood cleaner would go very well with that. Also, we don't have freaking metal cleaner when there's, you know, metal fence as part of the... That's just kind of dumb. Alright, well, I'm using a wood cleaner. Might as well clean something that's made of wood. Mostly, at least. Yeah, part of the problem is the soaps aren't really great for like any sort of a deep clean situation. I think that's more so meant to be like a precursor to whatever other higher powered thing that you use. Oh, that's why nothing's actually getting cleaned here right now, because there's no soap left in that bottle. Well, geez. Okay, again, can I get a clarification on what the lowest items is supposed to mean? Yes, thanks. Repeating yourself definitely explains it. I mean, that would definitely be something of or connected to this fence here. Slash wall, slash, any of that stuff. And I'm almost out of cleaner here. Great. Do I even need a full-on ladder for that? It only gives me a ladder to go all the way up to the gargoyle. Man. Now when you say like set of items, when you say set of items, am I to conclude that it's like maybe this whole fence wall situation here, rather than just like whichever individual object in this area is technically the lowest? Well, that's the problem here. I think there's technically, and anyway, yeah, I think there's technically a tie for lowest item. That tie being amongst all of these perimeter fences. And this attachment does absolutely nothing to clean them. But the fact that the other alternative is 6 dings leaves me kind of stuck here. Okay, so it says that perimeter fence is clean. It says that one's clean. Alright, I guess actually 3 out of the 4 fences are clean, so I just need to finish this specific one. Which I don't even really know how doable that is, but I'm gonna give it my best shot here. Well, the thing is, I generally don't think it would go a whole lot better with too many other objects either. Except I'm making like absolutely 0 progress on that. So I was like, maybe I should just try something else. Seriously. I hate the soap nozzle. It does nothing without the soaps. Like, who had the brilliant idea of making this like the finest mist possible with like 0% power? It's like I have to intentionally let it sit there for a little bit before it actually gets anything clean. And of course that takes for freaking ever. They didn't even give any kind of metal cleaner for this one. Alright, so feel free to object if you're so inclined, but from what I could tell, out of the objects that were remaining, these perimeter fences were the lowest. Because their little top point is not as high as any of the columns. And I'm pretty sure it doesn't go up as high as, like, the top of any of these gravestones or whatever. So, with all 4 of those fences being complete, I think we can move on. Good grief. Got so tired of doing that, I almost fell asleep partway through. And I'm only halfway joking about that. Okay, 3, 1. 1, doesn't really matter. 5 objects. Okay. One. I just figured this time that, like, since I'm already down here, I'll just focus on what's down here. Or at least focus on that first. Pretty sure I've got 2 dings so far since the last change. Three. Four. And 5. Okay. Alright. Twitch ad break should be coming in a few minutes. Actually, about 2 minutes. And I think not long after that, I'm gonna have to call it a wrap on the stream. Partially because I am just that tired. Two objects, eh? Or the next 10%. Well, I can definitely get a bunch of that progress done then. A bunch of the overall for the job. Alright, I was trying to, do it in a way where I wasn't going back and forth quite so rapidly. Just because I figure, less movement and smoother movement is probably preferred from a viewer's perspective. But eventually it got to a point where I was just like, okay, I'm changing my strategy. And there were a bunch of times there where I kept pretty much just washing over the same already cleaned part. Because, I feel like I try to angle it a certain way, but the way that I technically have the thumbstick pointed is probably not quite what I think it is. Oh, ad break is already in progress. Oh, and we're at 30%. That's right. It's only every 20% that you get a message. Not every 10%. So yeah. I figure with the... Well, let me just see what that gives me here. 3, 2 objects. Okay. Tell you what, I'll get 2 objects done, and then we'll call it a night, because I am just that tired. And I really should get a shower before I go to bed. One item. And... wait for it. 2 items. Okay. So... yeah. I think that'll do for tonight. So, I hope you all enjoyed the stream. Hopefully my being a little tired at the end didn't put a damper on things too much. So, I will be back tomorrow afternoon. The plan for that, I guess, should be hopefully last, or not last, but anyway, should be standard run in Slay the Spire with the defect. Hopefully one that I actually complete. If not, I'll have to complete it some other time. I might want to make sure that I'm live whenever I do actually complete it in any case, because then I'll have the last symbol thing that shows up in there and maybe see what happens from that. But anyway, okay. So that's tomorrow's plan. Other than Ironclad, but I finished the Ironclad, actually. Yeah, so after after the run where I went through the portal thing and then lost to the Act 3 boss, I just went back sort of, not... I went back when I wasn't live, went through pretty much a whole nother run, got back to the Act 3 boss, recorded that while I wasn't live, and I beat that one. But I will make sure that I am live whenever I happen to complete the whole standard run with the defect. Anywho, okay. Yeah, next week, obviously I'll be continuing the Bible study. Not quite sure what I'll do game-wise. Maybe if we discuss some suggestions beforehand, I'll be a little more inclined to do one of those options. Some of that's also a little bit dependent upon whether I go into work next Friday. But anyway, I'm digressing. Thought train is trying to roll when I want to wrap things up. So, I suppose that's going to do it. I am too tired to even really bother with a raid right now. So, I hope you're all doing well. Hopefully I'll see you soon for another stream. Feel free to check out other YouTube videos and other content of mine in the meantime. But whatever ends up happening, until next time, stay cool, everybody.